wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming. I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Same with the swearing in and the governor's visit and a council meeting. Sorry? So, yep. So anyway, we'll you going live to air, I think, is that? Okay, good morning, councillors, good morning, staff. Firstly, I'd like to open the meeting and have our acknowledgement to country. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Darumbal people, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to our neighbouring Aboriginal peoples within the local government area, the Gangaloo Nation people, the Barada, the Kabalbara and the Yetamarala people, and also acknowledge the Torres Strait Islander people whose land is in the Torres Straits but who live and work on Aboriginal land. Thank you, councillors. We have a full complement. Move on to confirmation of the previous minutes. Would I seek a mover in a second? I move Councillor Smith to have a seconder with Councillor Kirkland. Those minutes are true and accurate. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillors, we have a number of declarations of interest in matters on the agenda today, and we'll work through those as we go through, and there may, if there are other items that arise during the course of the meeting, please do not hesitate and inform the table. So Councillor Mathers, you were the first one there.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I, Councillor Mathers, inform the meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in item 9.3, Community Assistance Program, major sponsorship motorcycle in Queensland. This declarable conflict in interest arises because my sons Trenton Kai Mathers, my sister Councillor Sheree Rutherford and brother-in-law Michael Rutherford and I volunteered during Speedway events. I wish for eligible councillors to now determine, pursuant to section 150ES of the Local Government Act 2009, whether I may participate in the discussions about the matter, including by voting on the matter, or must leave the meeting, including any area set aside for the public, and stay away from the meeting while the eligible councillors discuss and vote on the matter.
Okay, we might, sorry Councillor Mathers, because there's a dual conflict here, we might go with Councillor Rutherford as well and deal with both items if you're wishing to be eligible.
Mine is slightly different to that again, so I don't know whether that makes a difference.
I would suggest, good Mayor, I would suggest we deal with your matter first, because I think you are going to leave the meeting, because I think if you were to vote on Councillor Mather's matter, you would have a conflict of interest on that one. So I think we deal with Councillor Rutherford's first, Mayor.
Yeah,
sorry about that.
We'll do that. Sorry, just the agenda of those ones. So apologies, Councillor Mathers, but we'll go with Councillor Rutherford first and make that decision on that then.
Just
Thanks, Councillor.
Before I read that out, can we please just clarify Speedway events? Can we just put solos in bracket beside that, please? So that it's very clear that it's not all...
Not the motorsport speedway.
Yeah.
It's, Okay. Thanks, Councillor Rutherford.
All right. I, Councillor Sheree Rutherford, inform the meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in Council Agenda Item 9.3, Community Assistance Program, Major Sponsorship Motorcycle in Queensland. This declarable conflict of interest arises because my brother Grant Mathers, nephews Trent and Kai Mathers, and my husband Michael Rutherford and I volunteer during Speedway solo events. Can I please add to that also that on occasion the trampoline section of the Rockhampton PCYC have assisted car parking in return for a donation. And certainly while I don't, I have no idea that that's happening this time around, I believe they should have the opportunity to do that if that opportunity does present itself. Yes,
So
Mr Mayor, I think it's probably best, because of that last section there in particular, that I'll just leave the meeting rather than ask council to vote on whether I can stay or not.
Okay, righto, thanks. Whether he can vote on stay or not?
So I'll leave the meeting?
Leave the meeting, President. Thanks, Councillor Rutherford. and we'll move on to Councillor Mather's point. I don't think we require you to read that again, but we'll move on to the decision-making about wishing to be eligible for council to determine. I'll just wait for Karen to catch up.
If probably Councillor Mathers, how you, just probably inform the table how you will put the public interest in front of the private interest. Is that
Certainly, Mr CEO. I was actually going to say I'm happy to take questions from around the table as well. So, look, I've been involved in motorcycle racing my entire life, so obviously it's a passion of mine, but in regards to solos, I purely and simply, I know the person in question, Mr William Warwick Day. He's approached me on a number of occasions to see if I could help out in regards to volunteering. Myself and my sons have helped in the VIP area, serving at the bar, helping to set up that type of thing. I have no connections whatsoever in regards to any committee, any decision-making processes, anything to do with any monetary value with it. So I believe I'm more than capable of being able to assess this on its merits and certainly put the community benefit above the sport on my own.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Mathers. Councillor Kirkland, did you have a question with regards to that item?
Yes, I suppose wondering about influence and how much influence you would feel that you have with Mr Warwick Day, and whether that's been an ongoing thing for how many years. So 2 questions in one.
Yes, certainly, no problem. William Warwick Day is a family friend, has known our family for quite a few years, back through PCYC when he was involved in boxing and that type of thing. So I certainly wouldn't, he's an associate, not a personal friend. In regards to the, so I don't think I've got any sway on his decision-making process. The second question, sorry, was?
Just how long through you, Mr Chair, how long the involvement has been like.
Yeah.
I'm trying to establish, Councillor, how close that relationship is. Obviously, with conflict of interest, if we've got a family member that we're considered to be quite close with, then we would be considered to have a conflict of interest. And the question is whether your decision-making will be influenced by that relationship. So I'm just trying to establish how long that's been going for, your relationship with the company, that the business, the Speedway.
Totally understand, and through you, Mr Mayor. So I've been involved in 3 meetings. Yeah, three meetings that I've helped him with. When I say meetings, as in solo meetings. Outside of the solo meetings, I very rarely have any contact unless I run into William Warwick Day on the streets. That's the only time I'd have any connections with him.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, we will ask for a decision on this matter now. So could I seek a mover and a seconder with regards to either item 1 or 2 on that those decisions there? So, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I'll move that Councillor Mathers doesn't have a declarable interest in the matter.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Fisher. I'll put that to the table.
So it's probably Councillor Mather has a conflict of interest. However, the table has determined that he may participate in the discussion and the meeting. So,
So, as in the item there, that he may participate in the decision-making about the matter, which includes that.
Yep.
Okay. Yep, I'll put that to the vote. Those move, Councillor Smith, seconded Councillor Fisher. Put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. We'll just wait for the Secretary to catch up and we'll invite Councillor Rutherford back in. Sorry. Do you want? Yeah, okay. Record his vote. You sure we do? Except, yeah, Councillor Latcham opposed it, voted against. So, so we'll go through the names. Yep, that's it. Okay, councillors, we'll move on to the next conflict. Councillor Fisher.
Mr. Chair, I, Neil Fisher, would like to inform the meeting that previously I have declared a conflict of interest in the Housing Construction Grant Program, the matter that will be discussed in item 9.8, Housing Construction Grant Program Draft Amendment. This is a declarable conflict of interest, arises from my family business, Fisher's Nursery, which was tendering on a project that was involved with a local builder. Our business was not successful in this tender, but there could be further opportunities to tender on future projects. So I propose that I leave and stay away from this place while the meeting is being held, while the matter is being discussed and voted on, and that is consistent with what I've done to this stage.
Thanks, Councillor Fisher. I'll go on to my conflict. I, Mayor Councillor Tony William, inform the meeting that I have a prescribed conflict of interest in matters item 9.6, Rockhampton Regional Planning Scheme Minor Amendment, that this prescribed conflict of interest arises from my brother Gerard Williams, who owns property in the Port Curtis area, which is part of the amendment. I propose to leave the meeting and stay away from the meeting in the place where this meeting is being held while this matter is being discussed and voted on. Thank you.
I might fix those words up too. Sorry, Mayor. You are required to leave the meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, so.
I am required.
Yeah.
I won't propose to leave. I'll leave the meeting. Councillor Kirkland.
I, Councillor Donna Kirkland, inform the meeting that I have a prescribed conflict of interest in item 9.6, Rockhampton Region Planning Scheme Minor Amendment. The prescribed conflict of interest arises as my husband Brett Kirkland and I are the proprietors of Dale Creek Proprietary Limited, trading as Ultratune South Rockhampton, which is located at 55 Gladstone Road, Allenstown, which is part of the amendment. As it's a prescribed conflict of interest, must leave the meeting. Change the words on mine as well, because it's prescribed we have to leave.
Yep. Okay. Noted, Councillor. Thank you. We'll just wait for that items to be clarified and moved.
Do we need to put in there, Mr. CEO, what the relevant, because it's put in our property address, but it's not saying what part of that amendment is the conflict with? As in the levy?
50.
Sorry, yes. We will put in South Rockhampton, but that is a part of the amendment. You're correct. Yours as well. So yeah. So it'll be with the South Rockhampton flow. It'll be zero designation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, councillors, moving on with the agenda, but again, note any conflicts that arise if they're not notified during the meeting, please make us aware. Public forums, deputations nil. Councillor Smith.
Sorry, I've got a conflict of interest too.
Okay.
It's up further, it's up at the...
Oh, sorry, Councillor Smith, we might have went over that one, did we?
For 8.1, Councillor Smith?
Yes.
No, that's not a declarable or a prescribed conflict of interest. It's a matter that you're dealing with just public money and you're just getting the table to do it.
Yeah, okay.
It's not a prescribed.
That's, sorry, 8.1.
Yeah.
But also if I add the Pony Club to that, I'll just declare that at the time.
Through the chair, Councillor Smith, I would suggest that after you finish with 8.1, you raise that matter of wanting to make a further donation to the Pony Club, then declare the conflict of interest, then have council determine both the conflict of interest and then the subsequent matter to do with the granting of the funds, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Okay, but this
But we've got this
9.2
one that we'll need to work through now.
is the follow cross one.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So I'd like to inform the meeting I have a declarable conflict of interest in 9.2, Community Assistance Program Major Sponsorship, Alton Downs Polo Cross and Sports Club Incorporated, who are holding the state championships this year in July. as my nephew Dane McKinnon is a member and plays for Bohemia Polocrosse Club, and he will be attending the event and competing. So I'd like to handle that just by leaving the room. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. Item 6, nil. Public forums and deputations. Item 7, no petitions. Move on to item 8, the councillor delegate reports. 8.1, councillor discretionary fund application, Rockhampton Agricultural Show. Councillor Alan Smith. Councillors, it's just a process there that this one needs to go through, so could I seek a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor Rutherford, seconder Councillor Latcham. We'll put that. Those in favour? Those against? Carried.
Mr Mayor, I would like to also donate $350 from my councillor discretionary fund to donate to the Boulder Combe Pony Club, and I am a member and instructor of that club as well.
Okay,
So I have a declarable conflict of interest.
Sorry, it was on. Sorry. So I think there's the proposed motion, and just leave it as that part, and then do the declaration for the conflict of interest.
Okay.
So I think it is that Councillor, I probably can do it for you. Councillor Smith declared a declarable conflict of interest as she's an instructor at the Boulder Combe Pony Club, yep, and is a member.
Yep.
And would like the table to determine.
No, I'd just like to leave the room. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, declarable could be perceived. So that's when, if she was wanting to stay, she would ask for a determination on the conflict of interest, and then whether or not she can stay or go. At this stage, she said, "I've just got a conflict of interest, which is declarable," and has left. And councillors, sorry, Mr. Mayor, the reason for Councillor Smith putting it in so early is there's a Jim Khan coming up, which that money is to go towards.
Yep. Otherwise, it would have went through the normal process and
yeah.
council would have made the determination at the time. Councillors, there's a motion there that approved the donation of $350 to the Boulder Combe Pony Club. Move Councillor Fisher, seconded Councillor Kirkland. I'll put that. Those in favour? Motion's carried. Invite Councillor Smith back in. Councillor Kirkland. Okay. Record that.
Record the way they voted as well, Mayor. So
That was unanimous. Okay, officers' reports. 9.1. Development incentives for the Mercy Health Aged Care Central Queensland. Councillor Fisher, is it?
no. I think Greg's online there, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Thanks, Greg.
Yes, Mayor and councillors, thank you and good morning. This is one of our applications. It's under an older development incentives policy, but it is now a complete project. The Mater Mercy Health and Aged Care Central Queensland. It was for 2 floors of oncology and cardiac ward that was constructed. It was approved in 2016 under the old development incentives policy.
Greg, I think we've got a conflict. One's just been come through. Sorry, mate. Councillor Fisher.
Yes, I'm just wondering, ask the question. I have been having oncology treatment there for the last 2
that's,
years.
that's removed. That's same as any other person of the community, same eligible.
Okay.
Righto. Thanks. Sorry, Greg. Back to the report, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. So this was a second application. But we are only assessing the second application here. The first application was a much larger development application. It was rescinded, and this is the second application. So really, it's reducing the infrastructure charges under the policy from 133,399 down to, geez, nice round number, 66,699.50.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Councillors, any questions to Greg with regards to that report? If not, seek a mover and a seconder. Move Councillor Smith, seconded Councillor Kirkland. I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thanks, councillors. Moving on to 9.2, the Community Assistance Program, major sponsorship, Alton Downs Polo Cross and Sports Club Incorporated. Councillor Smith? No. That's all right. You've done the conflict there. Alicia, did you want to speak to that report?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly. So, councillors, this is for the Alton Downs Polo Cross and Sports Club. They're planning to hold a Queensland Polo Cross Challenge on the 3rd and 4th of July. Within their application, they're suggesting that there will be 300 players, 400 horses and 800 supporters, of which about 500 people should stay for the duration of the carnival, or 3 nights. It's recommended, councillors, to provide $16,000 for assistance for this event. And it's been a number of years since they've held the event, but my experience with Polo Cross is that it's very well followed. So happy to take any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Wickerson, as a portfolio chair, do you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I support this application, but I just wanted to ask, probably through you to Alicia, all the figures that we see for this application and many others like it are anticipated attendance figures. Do we ever go back and get some documented data? Did they actually get the 3,000 people that they thought? And do they split up, and it's as easy as collecting the postcode as they come through the entrance gate? Are they locals or are they visitors, because the amount of spend would vary? A bit like Rocky Nats or whatever. Locals won't spend as much because they've already got a house and food here, but just to go back and get some of that data, because I imagine a lot of these people will repeat. They'll be back next year to get some support. If they are getting the figures that they anticipate to get, well, that's great. You know, we want that. But if they're not, well, maybe we need to reconsider and...
Yeah, it's probably part of that workshop that we'll be talking about, the whole formulation. I don't think they do currently, but it's prudent that we investigate that going forward. I don't think it's a great... it wouldn't be onerous on somebody to be able to do that and provide that back to justify the grant in the first place, and then that gives a bit more base and a bit more decision-making process going forward with other applications. So the true benefits...
Just to add to that, Mr. Mayor, they do have to acquit that money, so they have to demonstrate the expenditure that has been incurred, and with that they do provide, I guess, some information on the success or otherwise of the event. What we don't do is necessarily ask for hard data around that, so that's something that we can certainly follow up.
I think that's what Councillor Wickerson was looking for, the hard data to say that the exact numbers and postcodes and so forth. So again, that's probably something we can workshop and develop going forward.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Wickerson. Councillor Rutherford?
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to move. I understand the point Councillor Wickerson's making, and I think it's something we need to look at for every event, every sponsorship that we hand out. So, you know, happy to do that when we get to the workshops and delve into it. But this is a really good event, and I think it's an event that represents the diversity of our community. You know, we have a large rural sector of our community. This is something that is dear to them, and it does have quite a following, and I'm happy to move it.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Rutherford. Have a seconder. Councillor Wickerson. We'll put that. Those in favour? Motion's carried. Thanks very much, councillors. We'll invite Councillor Smith back.
Mr Mayor, I'll...
You'll leave, Councillor Rutherford, thank you. We might need to get a turnstile there, Evan, it's going in and out of these doors. It is. As we go, we'll move on. Councillors, item 9.3, the Community Assistance Program, major sponsorship for motorcycling Queensland. Again, Alicia, would you like to speak to this, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just briefly, so this is for an event, councillors, that's on the 23rd and 24th of July. It sounds like Councillor Mathers is much more familiar with this type of event than what I am in terms of it being solo and sidecar racing. I guess, draw card for this event is that we're expected to have 3,000 attendees from all over Australia. So it would bring that huge visitation to Rockhampton, which is what we're seeking with funding this event. So happy to take any questions, or even Councillor Mathers might want to share his experience with the sports.
Councillor Mathers, any pearls of wisdom?
No pearls of wisdom. Look, it's a motorcycle racing or solo racing has been a long-standing thing throughout the community, and I think you probably already read it's the oldest standing track in Australia that we've still got here, so there's a lot of heritage to it. Going by the previous meetings that I've attended, the 3,000 attendees will be a stretch. I don't think they'll get that many, but it's still a very good event for the community, I believe.
That's okay. Thank you. Councillor Wickerson, no comment. Okay. Councillor Seeker, mover and a second with regards to that recommendation. Move Councillor Wickerson, second and Councillor Mathers. We'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Unanimous. Thanks, councillors. Motion is carried. Invite Councillor Rutherford back to the meeting. Ross is getting his steps up today. Thanks, Councillor Rutherford. Item 9.4, Regional Arts Development Fund 2021, Round 2 funding recommendations. Is this Alicia?
Mr Mayor,
John?
I'll just defer to John, but we also have a query back from one of the questions that were raised yesterday about one of the recipients. Sorry, so I'll hand over to John.
Okay, thanks, Alicia. Thank you, John. Good morning.
Good morning, through the chair. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
So what we have here is our typical RADF funding report with recommendations from the selection committee on which applicants should receive the funding. This is round 2 for 2021. So the team who put this together with Louise Hales, our supervisor for major venues, recommends that council approve the following applications for funding from the Regional Arts Development Fund. Museums and Galleries Queensland, where the grant's going to be used towards the cost of bringing museum and gallery professionals to work with cultural organisations in Rockhampton for $5,000. Elizabeth Simard, the Generations of Men exhibition and screening showcases local history, landscapes and soundscapes for $6,400. Veronica Veal, the artist, is creating an immersive light experience as part of exhibition Confluence for the opening of Rockhampton Museum of Art for $10,000. Just skip to the Rockhampton Lapidary Club to engage Rod Beattie to teach the craft of opal cutting and polishing to members of the club for $2,316. And then Nellie Lovegrove to work alongside children of different ages in a workshop series to develop a mural for the Gracemere Scouts Hall building for $10,840. Before concluding, it's worth noting that Nellie Lovegrove had applied for some funding previously, and that was contingent upon her receiving extra support. She was unable to do that during the COVID period. She maintained those funds, and then when this next round came through, another application was put through for a different project. The funding amount is being deemed to be the same, and so rather than the money going back out and then going back in, it was reassessed, and we're happy to recommend it. And the other thing to note in the commentary of the report is it's a really great diverse range of projects which is being, we're recommending at the moment. So thank you.
Thanks, John. I have questions. Councillor Wickerson, then Councillor Kirkland. Councillor Wickerson.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just to reiterate what John just said, to highlight the diversity of projects. So it's not all just about painting, for example. So the first one is more of an administrative thing to make sure that the where, as Central Queensland, we're involved in the review of the museum and gallery standards, so that's important to be in the grassroots of how we manage that industry, but also a film production about men's business, which is good to see. Obviously, men's mental health is probably forefront in many minds at the moment, so that's good. But also the mural from Nellie on the Scout Hall, which is good to get the kids involved in that, and the final one there, which seems to be outfield, but not really, because it's in Walter Reed, the Lapidary Club, getting an expert up to show them how to cut opal. So it's right across the board of art and culture, which is what we will try to do with the assessment. And also that there were 7 applications, and 2 of them didn't quite meet the criteria, so we don't just take all comers. There is a selection process, and we screen those, and as a panel we assess them as they go through.
Again, you're right, it's quite a diverse range of different applications in that space. Councillor Kirkland?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, I echo absolutely what Councillor Wickerson has just said. I'm more than happy to support the recommendation. I do just have a question. I'd just like to ask, through you, Mr Chair, John, if you could explain what happens with that leftover 8,809, how that works.
Thank you. Yes, through the chair, there is a process where we can have small, short response grants, and interestingly, the RADF funding actually goes from August to August, so it's a little bit strange from that perspective. So that 8,000 will hopefully still be available for some projects to be delivered in the meantime. And then normally what would happen is if there's any funding left over, the half which is council's would just go back to council, and then we would make an application to the state government about what we do with those remaining funds. Sometimes they ask them to return, but that small amount they may elect to allow us to just roll forward into the next year. But there is still certainly abilities to disperse those funds within the funding period.
Thanks, John, and thanks, Councillor Kirkland. Councillor Rutherford?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'm still a little confused about the Nellie's amount. So, John, through you, Mr Mayor, John, is that 2 projects now?
No, it's one project. The initial project, which was a much larger mural project, which she had requested, the RADF did not give all of the funding for, and the advice that was given at the time was, if you'd like to do this greater project, we're able to give you this amount, but the cost for the remainder of it, you'll need to try and find some other funding and support. My understanding is that the artist was in the process of doing that during that period, and she was unable to do that during, I guess, what happened from a COVID perspective. And so at the time, the way I understand the process is that she then identified a different project, and the decision was made, okay, hold those funds, apply for this different project, which is a smaller amount overall of what she was hoping to achieve, and then RADF committee would assess whether that's appropriate or not. And I'm quite confident that I'm very confident that if this second project didn't meet the requirements, she'd either be not proceed or would be asked to return some of the funding. So that's the way that happened.
Councillor Rutherford?
So how much money in total has she received?
For this project?
No, well, you said she was allocated money, received it and held it?
Yeah, it was the amount which is about pretty similar to this. That's my understanding. I don't have the exact figures in front of me. She retained it.
Sorry, just through the chair, I can confirm it's exactly the same amount, Councillor Rutherford. So she was allocated 10,840 in the last round, which she's kept hold of. So she has applied for the same amount, but a completely different project, and now that has been approved. So that saved the administrative side of it as well.
So is that...
in terms of the returning and reissuing.
So is that nearly 22,000 all up?
No, it's only one
it's
amount.
Just a rollover.
They're 2 different projects, so the other project didn't happen. She would have been normally had to return that back, but she's applied for a different building, similar sort of thing, but a lesser of a project, and the committee have assessed that amount. So it's the same amount, just the one time.
So then why does that affect the total? If that money's already basically been expended, why does it affect the total now?
Oh, I'd have to report back on that, whether or not that has been factored into the reduction of that first round or not. So whether we've doubled up, you're right, but it's only one amount that we're paying forward to her.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
get that answer on notice, councillor. Okay, councillor, no further questions. Can I seek a mover and a seconder with regards to this one? Move councillor Wickerson, seconded councillor Kirkland. I'll put that. Those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to the next item. Nothing. Infrastructure, planning and regulations, Rockhampton Planning Scheme. Minor amendment. Oh, sorry, did I jump on? Specialised supplier. Sorry, I flicked through on my thing. 9.5. My apologies. Again, Alicia or John?
Yeah, I think when you just skipped, Mr Mayor, that John has accidentally got off the WebEx. He was going to do this one. But councillors, this is just a report in terms of a specialised supply with the Rockhampton Regional Libraries and the system that runs there. It's part of our format, I suppose, in terms of we can only go where there's limited number of suppliers, we can't reach that procurement policy and there's like a number of quotes. So this is the process that we go through. I'm happy to take any questions.
No, it's reasonably self-explanatory, and my apologies again flipping over that item. Councillor Fisher's happy to move. Can I seek a seconder? Councillor Wickerson. We'll put that. Those in favour. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Now moving on to 9.6, where there's myself and Councillor Kirkland have a conflict, so I'll hand over to the Deputy Mayor to chair the meeting while we deal with that matter.
Okay, councillors. Who have we got online to? Oh, Cameron.
Oh, call me old-fashioned.
Across to you, Cameron, to just talk us through this amendment.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor, and good morning, councillors. So the report is in relation to a minor amendment to the Rockhampton Region Planning Scheme. This is something we'd like to do sort of on an annual basis. As you can appreciate, the scheme's now 5 years old, going on 6 years old. So as part of the contents and as legislation changes, parts of the scheme become outdated. So the purpose of this report is to resolve to amend the scheme, undertake a minor amendment to update the standards in the scheme, such as Australian standards or updated legislation, to also include inconsistent development applications, which must be outlined in the scheme, and also to include ministerial designations as well. So the minor amendment doesn't result in any policy changes in the scheme itself. It just simply is simply updated and recognises new legislation, new Australian standards, inconsistent development applications that have already been approved by Council, and also approved ministerial designations as well.
Any questions, councillors? I think Cameron... Oh, Councillor Smith.
So with the inconsistent decisions, so are we saying that they weren't in there before?
No, sorry, through the Chair. We do have some in there. Now we're just updating that now. So what we've done in the past is when we do a major amendment to the scheme, we've actually included a lot of these minor changes in there as well. Now we're just doing minor amendments as sort of an annual basis to continually update the scheme. So yes, there is some inconsistent development applications. We just need to incorporate the last couple of years of inconsistent applications.
Okay, Councillor Wickerson.
Yep. Thank you, Mr Acting Mayor. Under Schedule 5, Cameron, I wasn't quite clear why those 4 projects are included. I know what they are, but we have other major projects what is special about those for that they come under that schedule designation of premises for development?
Yeah, so under Schedule 5 ministerial designations, they've already been approved ministerial designations. So in all planning schemes, they must reflect those ministerial designations. So those 4, we've obviously got some already in there. Okay, now we're just incorporating the new 4 that have been approved in the last couple of years.
If I could, probably to help the councillors, if I could through the chair, is that these approvals have overridden the underlying schemes requirements. So this is actually coming over the top of it. So that's already what's happened, and so that removes away what was in the old scheme.
Oh, understood.
Yeah. A lot of the times they're around government projects, so schools have a number of ministerial designations. They sometimes don't really impact on our scheme, whereas the alcohol and drug rehabilitation, that would have been an underlying open space zone, and effectively that approval comes over the top of it. We take away...
So a retrospective action to go back and tidy it up.
Yeah, so you don't go back. Yeah.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Councillor Rutherford.
Mr Deputy Mayor, it's just curious more so than anything. Given the planning scheme's a living document and legislation does change and things change, why, and not by our making, why do we then have to go out to advertising every time that happens? I understand for a major amendment, but for a minor amendment when it's driven by other levels of government, why is there a requirement to advertise?
So through the chair, there's no formal public consultation for minor amendments. It is simply resolve and publish it in the public notice, the public gazette. So there will be no formal public consultation for this.
So it's really just about advising that that's what's happened. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions? No further questions. I seek a mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor Mathers, seconded Councillor Smith, and I should have, as the portfolio chair, should have automatically went to you, Councillor Mathers. So it's been moved Councillor Mathers, seconded Councillor Smith. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Within the minutes, we'll record all the names, Karen? Yep.
Thanks, Councillor Fisher. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Is 9.7, Summary Budget Management Report for the period ending the 30th of April 2021, and hand over to Marnie. As we can understand, we've been working through the budget and where we've been, so I'm sure we should all be pretty abreast about what the situation is, but I'll ask Marnie to read the report and seek any questions after that. Thanks, Marnie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and good morning, everyone. So we're reporting on the budget figures for the 1st of July through to the 30th of April 2021. The results are around 83.3% of the revised budget distributed. So operating revenue is currently sitting at 92% of the budget, predominantly because of net rates and utility charges. Private works and recoverable works are at 89% of the budget, due to higher bulk water sales and timing of works done by the Civil Ops team for Main Roads. Grants and subsidies contributions are behind budget. We're waiting for our financial assistance grant to come in before the end of the financial year, as that prepayment is arranged. Year on year, that's what happens. And our interest revenue is ahead of budget at 92% as well. We're looking at expenditure being around 77% of the revised budget, so we're tracking well in that space. Contractors and consultants are only sitting at 71%, but we're expecting that some of these works will be completed and paid before the end of the year, so that will no doubt increase. Asset operational is at 77% due to the lag in timing of billing for things like electricity, cleaning and security costs. Admin expenses are sitting a bit lower than anticipated at 60%. due to some delayed spending on replacement of ICT equipment and licensing renewals, which usually occurs in the May-June period. So we'll probably see that being picked up in this month and next month. Our total capital income is sitting at around the 76% of the revised budget, and capital expenditure is at 59%. Our capital spend saw a reduction, as we've discussed at our budget workshops, of only 4.9 million spent during April, but we are seeing that really bumping up during May with our actual costs at present and what we've already looked at. Our total investments are sitting at 74.8 million to the 30th of April, and total loans are at 121.3 million. We are in the process of, as we've already discussed with Council, reviewing at a high level our monthly budget for May, and we will bring that to Council in June for a meeting for adoption, but it is at a high level, mainly to look at our spend on capital and whether there needs to be adjustments for carryovers. Generally speaking, we're seeing a little bit of change in our operational expenditure, but not significant changes. So that's it.
Okay, thanks, Money. Again, yeah, that capital one, we could we'll watch that one and see where that goes to see where there are any carryovers required.
Yeah.
Councillors, any questions to Marnie with regards to that? I'm sure we all should be very much abreast of what's happening with all the workshops we've been undertaking throughout the weeks and months. It doesn't look like there's any questions from the table, Marnie. I'm happy to move the recommendation. Seek a seconder. Councillor Latcham. We'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks very much. Councillor Fisher's leaving the meeting on item 9.8.
Going to make a cup of tea, so
Councils, the item Housing Constructions Grant Program Draft Amendment. Again, Marnie, would you like to speak through that report, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So in the absence of Damon, we're just reporting on changes to the Housing Construction Grant Program. This was previously introduced by Council and provides payments for approved applications upon completion of constructions of new homes to the 30th of June 2021. It summarises a number of identified capacity constraints that the construction industry locally has been facing and other circumstances which are impacting on the delivery of payments by the 30th of June 2021. And we've presented an amended policy to reflect those changes and to actually keep up with what's happening in the local industry. Probably the key aspects is that what we have seen are a number of houses that haven't reached completion that made application for this grant and won't reach completion by the 30th of June. So as long as the crux of it is really as long as the base payment for the construction of that property or house is done before the 30th of June and evidence is provided of those applications that have already been submitted, Council is amending the policy to reflect payment for those homeowners for that $5,000 each. So really that's effectively what the change is and how we're administering it. There's been quite a take-up. You will see that Council received 185 applications for it. 107 of those at the time of the report had been finalised. We had 41 that were either ineligible or refused. A number of them were signed up when they weren't actually purchased or hadn't purchased the land, and then those haven't been transferred as yet, so they won't obviously meet the criteria that we need. And there's about 37 applications remaining. So that's what we're sort of dealing with at this point in time before the 30th of June. We are seeing of those 37, there are still 12 that haven't actually been transferred. So we think that they probably won't be eligible either. So we're probably around the 25 properties that we'll be dealing with under this change to the policy.
Mm-hmm. Thanks very much, Marnie. And again, fantastic proposal and really hit the mark about what we were trying to achieve with that. But this is just wrapping it up and again being a little bit flexible with the pressures on the building industry at the moment. So moving with the times and wrapping that project up. It's a great result and great to see that that's where we're at at this point in time. So Councillor, the office of recommendation that we adopt the amendments to the housing and construction grant policy as outlined within the report. I'm happy to move and seek a seconder. Councillor Mathers, I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Carried unanimously. Thanks, councillors. Better go and try and get Councillor Fisheries in the making a cuppa. Oh, sorry, councillor, yes. Elevator music. One in and one out. Balance the ship. No, that's it. Councillors, moving on to our next item, 9.9, the Assistant Portfolio Councillor appointment. Councillor Latcham's recommendation of Councillor Latcham be appointed to the Assistant Infrastructure Assistant Portfolio Councillor. Councillor Wickerson.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to put an alternate motion to the table, if I may.
Yep.
Yep. And with all respect to Councillor Smith, who I'm sure will do a sterling job in infrastructure, I think on request, I think Councillor Smith would benefit from your experience with a long-serving reign of infrastructure just in that transition period. I believe when we first started talking about the assistant portfolio roles, I think it was with that intent that we were there to back up the chairs of those portfolios with our individual expertise and experience. So I just think in that transition period, because it is a huge portfolio to look after, I'm sure you do a great job at it, as you did with planning. But I'd just like to propose that that you be appointed as the assistant chair of that portfolio.
I've probably got enough on it, and I respectfully probably decline because I have got enough on my plate with other the economic development and tourism area. It's one, but also oversight of the whole region one. But Councillor Smith, yeah,
Mr Mayor, I didn't discuss it with you because I thought, well, you've got so much to do, and being the mayor as well, and normally your portfolio is economic development, so I was going to include you in everything I do and ask you a lot of questions, but I sort of didn't approach you about
Councillor, it. I don't really see the assistant portfolios playing a great role. I see now that we have these workshops. Previously, when we had the committee structure, when everyone wasn't a member on the committee, we did struggle to get an understanding and assistance. But we're all a team on the workshops now, so we are getting a clearer indication. So I really, it's only a figurehead sort of thing to say that you're an assistant to these portfolios when we're all working in the same space and sharing those projects and discussions. So I don't see this as a big one, whether it's any extra workload or not really. It's just really a name on a title, so to speak. So I'm not sure, Councillor Wickerson, I don't think that in my ability to be able to take any more work on in that space, I don't think that'd help in the situation at all.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, if you're not willing to do that, I'm happy to withdraw.
Okay, yeah, I think we'll work at that, but I see there's further lights on. Councillor Smith.
Mr Mayor, just another comment. I see the assistant portfolio person as the one available for media. You know, if the portfolio councillor is away, I remember a time when I think Councillor Fisher was on official business and the mayor was away, and the media was trying to get someone to talk about something to do with waste or water, and nobody ended up doing it. So I see the assistant as someone that fills in for things like that, and you know,
that's the beauty of it. I mean, that is a great option, and having that when the councillor on leave or away for other purposes, and that's an option there with that. And I think we've got a number of assistants throughout the council, but there's always delegation that can happen from the mayor's role as well. So if there's things come up that need to be managed during that time, we can work through it. I'll go to Councillor Rutherford and then Councillor Latcham. Councillor Rutherford.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Mine's a slight side issue, and it's just in the report. It says that the Advanced Rockhampton, so that sort of events tourism remains, the assistant remains vacant at this point in time. I just wanted to reiterate that I'm really interested in that one, and it's just waiting until we sort through.
Yeah, and that's fine, Councillor. I've taken that one on board, and it's just a matter of waiting for our direction on where we're going with that space. But that's warranted, and I do recall that and note that. Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, just to further Councillor Smith, last week we had Councillor Fisher fill in for me when I wasn't able to actually physically lead the workshop, so it goes to show it does work to have an assistant.
Yep. Okay, councillors, can we seek a mover and a seconder with regards to that appointment? Recommendation, move Councillor Smith, seconded Councillor Mather. We'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to item 10, notices of motions. 10.1, notice of motion. Councillor Drew Wickerson, review of council travel approval process. Councillor Wickerson, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yep, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll probably go through the individual items there, but probably wanted to start off with what it's not. Now, it's not a travel ban or anything like that. We had our integrity workshop the other day, and a thing that I took away from that, and we all already know that, is that every decision we make must be fully informed, and that's sort of a core of what we do. So decisions to go away to travel, I think, really need to come back to the table for a bit of peer review. We're expecting, and I think even, pardon me, requiring our staff, our officers and staff to think really long and hard about the value to the organisation of travel away to conferences. And I think a percentage of about 60% cut or so to travel, really to fit in with our overall ambition to manage our budget. Pardon me. So going through these things, the first one is that all those decisions to travel away outside the local government area come back to an ordinary council meeting for peer review and decision. That those requests need to be supported by some accompanying documentation of what the true value is back to the organisation before we travel away. And probably the final one there is just to really consider, and if COVID has taught us anything, is that we can operate our business nearly to 100% efficiency remotely. So we WebEx in to meetings all the time. We travel away and then WebEx in back to this table. It can work the other way too. We can be at this table and or in this region and WebEx into these things away. I believe our core business is here in the Rockhampton region, and absolutely there are going to be times when we need to travel away outside the region for important business that will directly benefit our region. And of course, when that's justified at the table, of course we'll approve that. There was one line there too about decisions that have already been made by the table, and a great one is the CQ Rock, where council has already decided that we'll send one or two delegates or whatever it is away. Those decisions obviously are preset, and that's absolutely fine. So I'd like to put that to the table with our recommendation that we modify or revise the expenses reimbursement and provision of facilities for Mayor and Councillors policy as detailed in the recommendation.
So you'll move. Can I seek a seconder?
I've got a question.
Yeah, I'll get a seconder first, and then we'll go questions. Councillor Rutherford. Questions, Councillor Smith, then Councillor Latcham, then Councillor Kaplan.
So with our travel amount that's spent, the cost of our car, fuel, servicing, etc., that goes on to the travel expense too, doesn't it? Is that part of that 5,000?
Sorry, Councillor Smith, that goes against your vehicle expenses. So you'll notice that a number of the councillors have different value amounts for their vehicles at the end of the year, and that gets reported in the annual report.
So that's not part of that
No,
5,000?
the travel is the actually outgoing expenditure for flights, accommodation, and registrations and meals.
Okay. Well, could I speak against the motion?
We've got further questions, and we'll put it to the formal for and against. Councillor Latcham, and then Councillor Kirkland.
Mr Mayor, to speak against it.
Okay, well we'll wait for the process. Is question, Councillor Kirkland?
Yes, just a councillor through you, Mr Mayor. agree in principle. I just want to ask the question how the amendment would be enforced when between an invitation to an event and the actual event, there is no opportunity for a formal resolution around it, how you would pose that we would address that. Would it be deferred to the CEO for an immediate decision or the Mayor? Do we need to include that within the body of this resolution?
Would it fall back to the policy?
Yeah, I think probably, yeah. So normally those invitations would be for the region, that'd be the majority of them. Yeah, they can, so if I could, Mayor, just a little bit of thing. The expenses reimbursement policy used to be that all travel, except for the Mayor, used to come to the council. Then that then became to me, and that was not probably the best way to administer it for all councillors on the way through. And then it's, well, then you've got this one too as such. So I think there's probably mechanisms that you could actually seek the Mayor and CEO's approval or whatever else for that.
Or you could deal with it retrospectively.
Retrospectively, it's always difficult. Yeah, you could do it retrospectively if that's what council want to do, or you can leave it with myself to do.
I think perhaps, Mr. Mayor, that there would need to be some sort of framework around that. If we're going to go down this path, we need to be very clear on all aspects of it.
Yep. Thanks, Councillor Kirkland. We need to be mindful of that. Councillor Fisher, question?
Yes, very much following what Councillor Kirkland had said. My first question, probably to the CEO. At the start of this term, a number of councillors there were nominated to be representatives on outside the region committees or boards. Now, these boards have meetings across, not only across central Queensland, but across the state. And sometimes, you know, is this, and the timelines, as Councillor Kirkland said, sometimes there you do get requests for meetings that that you are unable to do via Skype or those, and I'm talking about my representation with Lawman. And those timelines there are very difficult as to join up with meetings of the council here. How do we take that forward?
I think, if I could, through the Chair, to Councillor Fisher and councillors, I think that that's probably the finer mechanics. I think the first thing is to resolve what your policy position is, and then we can work our way through the mechanics of it, because you could have, you know, a definition of what the official business is and what the official travel is. You can build that around it. There's a couple of variants that you could, or controls you can put over the top of that would allow some, and not some. It's probably down the finer detail I have to get to, but it's the general policy position first, and then I'll have to work through the mechanics of it. So.
Then my second question is, we approved only just recently the advocacy policy, and which was sort of very much, if an opportunity arose, that council officers, the Mayor and Deputy Mayor, could be asked to attend. Again, that also sort of contradicts or puts that sort of awkwardness in that policy. Which one overrides the other?
Well, this policy would override your previous ones. So that's where it would sit.
Yeah,
and then I'd have to come back to us then and say, well, how it's going to operate goes back to Councillor Kirkland's question and your first one, Councillor Fisher.
May I ask, through the Chair to the proposer, would you be prepared for us to workshop? Because I actually like the intent of having that extra, oversight. I think that's important, and I know with working with a number of councillors that from different councils in the Lawmac area, there is no single policy in any of the other communities, but maybe we need to work through and actually, sort of sometimes there we could actually come up with the policy that has the intent that yourself has outlined, but could also there we have that input from the CEO and also the relevant officers as well.
Through this, Mayor, no, I'd rather get it resolved now in the public space. What I didn't say earlier is the intent that I had was, and it's not to do with integrity, it's to do with transparency and accountability. Every other decision we make happens at the table in the full view of the public that we represent. I don't think it's a good optics to be making decisions that directly benefit ourselves, travelling away, whatever, on our own. We wouldn't ever let officers do that. I remember in the distant past when I worked for council, an officer was doing that and got expelled for it. Where it should be held to the same standards that we need to, and if it's a good project to do, a good event or a meeting to attend, our peers will obviously support that, and away we go. Most meetings for these formal ones have plenty of notice to come back to the table, and if not, well then through the CEO we can manage that minor tweaking of it to make sure that we can attend those very important meetings. It's just to have that oversight and peer review.
Could I suggest that we do a further dot point to the item to include that, because that's the issue that I have concern with, just for the CEO to give delegation to the CEO should there be something arise that the policy may not capture.
Yep. Mr Mayor, happy to do that. I'd need some assistance, I think, from Evan for the details.
If you just make an amendment to it.
Sure.
Councillor Kirkland.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just while they're doing that, I do think that there is another body of work around us actually coming to a definition of what denotes an official business later on. It's a separate thing.
You're right, and I think the CEO is developing that about where tickets and events and protocols around who should be attending and who shouldn't. So that's another body of work in itself. So separate to this one. Yeah, Councillor Wickerson, that the delegation be given to the CEO to determine on urgent councillor travel.
Yes, happy with that, Mr Mayor.
Okay, I think that's a bit of middle ground in case of those other ones. Councillor Rutherford.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A little along the same lines as Councillor Kirkland there about, what constitutes official travel, but also just some clarification. I think this is what Councillor Smith was getting at just before. In the annual report, it has listed our travel expenses and allowances, and I think there must be a component of that, and it's certainly been explained to us in that way, that there is some component of our vehicle usage that is in that, and I think maybe we need a clearer breakdown of in that annual report, or even to us. There's no easy way of finding what is specifically travel expenses. Yeah.
It should all be travel, which is your airfares, hospitality, accommodation, registration. Your vehicle sits over here as a vehicle expense. It sits there. I'll double check it. Yeah, because there's no mixing of that side of it, because we can't do that.
No.
So, for instance, last financial year it said I had $7,000 worth of expenses for travel expenses and allowances. I didn't go anywhere.
That's right. That's okay.
We'll have to look at that one. We'll take that offline. That's another question.
So that's, I think that's what Councillor Smith is getting at. It's hard to see what actually is, because it,
the only way
you don't know
what
we don't know exactly what we're dealing with.
Damon's got a full breakdown spreadsheet. Damon not being here, it's what is defined as travel.
Yeah, we can take those questions offline, councillors, and work out the costings and so forth. So, look, if there's no further questions around this.
I've got another question.
Question, Councillor Smith.
So, before you people go to CQ Rock meetings, that's got to come to council every time? Well, that's what this recommendation's saying. Only excluding the mayor. So if the council official was going to a CQ Rock meeting, that would have to come to council.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Sorry, I thought I was... Yeah, so, Councillor Smith, the third bullet point, I think addresses that. So anything that's had prior council approval, and CQ Rock is the example that I gave, Mr Mayor, I think that's correct. So that's still, that doesn't have to come back. That's a pre-existing approval that's already come to the table for, I think, Mayor and Deputy Mayor to attend. That doesn't need to come back here. It's already been approved by the table.
So I might travel to CPMG meetings?
I think we'd have to fix up a few of those things.
Yeah.
We'd have to fix up a couple of them, but there wouldn't be many to fix up.
No.
Because we've effectively, all you've done is appoint. I'd have to go back and check how each person was appointed to those groups and see what was attached to that resolution, because I know with the CQ Rock, that was quite specific around the Deputy Mayor attending, whereas some of the CPMG ones and Lawmac ones and other ones were not so specific in relation to what the appointment's for and how the appointment is going to be rolled out. So I have to go back and check that. But it's good governance. It's 12 months on. It's a good way of going.
Mm. Councillor Fisher?
Yeah, and I actually, you've almost answered my question, but yeah, it just sort of comes back to particularly where we have been appointed, and Lawmac in particular for me is one that at the moment, because of the restructure of the organisation, is taking not only sort of regular teleconferences and Zoom meetings, but also in-person workshops. So this could be sort of almost like every month you bring in a report to council. But if the CEO is...
Talking to the CEO will bring a further report back about our appointment onto external organisations, and that would be approved by the table, and again that would come under that dot point 3 is what Councillor Wickerson has mentioned. So I think everything's covered in that, and if there is anything that's outside of that further point with the delegation be given to the CEO to determine councillor travel, we'll pick that up. I think it's a great way of, again, transparency and being accountable, just to make those modifications to the policy as we go forward. So, councillors, we'll head into the debate proper. If that be the case, I'll ask the mover of the motion, Councillor Wickerson, to speak to it, or are you happy from what you've said previously?
No, Mr Mayor, I'm happy.
Okay, do we have a speaker against the motion? Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and something just to read out to make sure I get it clear. So I wish to speak against the motion on the basis. Former Mayor Strelo recognised the importance of councillors travelling outside of the region to learn, engage, build relationships, promote and advocate for our region. Last year, former Mayor Strelo organised a trip out to Carmichael Mine to show council support for the mining industry, to outline how important it is for our Rockhampton region. There are councillors who attend the Bowen Basin Mining Club lunches in Mackay each month as a show of support for the mining industry on behalf of Rockhampton Regional Council. I fear that any changes to this policy could compromise many years of great advocacy by not supporting further attendance at these lunches. It should be recognised that some councillor portfolios have greater demands to travel outside of the Rockhampton region. In the waste and recycling portfolio, there are 4 Lawmac meetings held around the state each year, and these require attendance in person only. It is the relationships with the other councillors and waste managers formed over that time that enable greater communication of issues within the waste and recycling community, to try to offer assistance, to work together for a common goal, to showcase and recognise innovation. This is all to benefit the Rockhampton region. Sometimes attendance at these meetings outside our region allow for new ideas gained by seeing what other councils have done. For example, the street art in the CBD side streets of Mackay. The new material recovery facility in Cairns allows insights into what can be done when our new MRF is being designed. Sometimes it is unexpected opportunities that present itself that can't be achieved by being on a Zoom meeting. For example, whilst attending the Waste Conference at the Gold Coast earlier this year, I was able to network with like-minded persons and met a senior waste manager who kindly invited me to inspect the landfill site in Toowoomba and gave me a personal tour around the site. In addition, he invited me to visit the Smart Waste Transfer Station at John Darien outside Toowoomba. He was very supportive and offered valuable advice in my role as Waste and Recycling Manager. The best way to find out what is on other people's minds is face-to-face. Rockhampton has hosted many successful events, including Rocky Nats and River Festival. Many of these events would not have happened if not for the unplanned opportunities presented by councillors attending other events outside of our region. River Festival was sponsored by Adani after much advocating in support of their mine. These opportunities would be lost if the policy was to be changed. I note that this is Councillor Wilkinson's recommendation, not Council's. I implore you to consider the great advocacy and other benefits achieved by hard-working councillors attending meetings outside the region and the risks associated with any changes. I believe the policy at the moment is fully transparent and it has accountability. And as the old saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't change it. Thank you.
Speakers for the motion? Councillor Rutherford.
Mr Mayor, Councillor Latcham, this doesn't stop any of those things that you just talked about. It still
Councillor,
allows...
we might just speak to the motion rather than the individual, if we could, please.
Yep, sorry, that's my mistake, I guess. Yep, so this policy still allows for attendance at conferences, attendance at meetings, you know, council visiting other councils. It still allows all that. What it does is let that happen in a transparent way where we are doing that at the council table, that the community is brought on board with that, and that we are also setting, we're being role models for our organisation. You know, we know that times are tough. We're trying to tighten our belt in all areas. This is one area where we have been, staff have been restricted in this area, so this is an area that makes sure we're accountable not only to the community but to all our staff as well. So still allowing for travel to important events.
Thank you. Another speaker against the motion, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I just feel that a change to our policy will deter councillors from travelling to other areas. The fact that it's got to come to a meeting, it will probably deter people from even going. I think in 2012, when I joined this council, nobody knew who we were in the resources sector, and thanks to Councillor Fisher and us travelling to mining expos and the Bowen Basin Mining Club, we became very prominent. And I still remember at a mining expo, people lined up to talk to us, and we never had that sort of publicity before. And now that's put us in a really good position as far as the resources sector is concerned. And I just think that it will deter councillors from travelling outside our region. And just the last dot point, and I agree totally with what Councillor Latcham has said, but also WebEx and Zoom are great, but there's nothing like being there in person. And we know that when you're miles away from the action, you're reluctant to join in sometimes because sometimes it's too hard to get people to see you, but otherwise you just don't feel like joining in. But if you're there in person and representing your council, things are a lot better and turn out a lot better for our council.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Another speaker in favour, Councillor Kirkland.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I actually think that in the essence of transparency, this is actually adding a further layer of transparency to our community. It's showing the community what gives the community an insight to those types of events that we are actually attending. They'll be, I'm sure, thrilled to see the number of events that we are attending, as well as meetings that we're attending that are outside the region in an advocacy position for them. So I think it's a good thing in that regard. I also think that if there is a particular function, luncheon, whatever that is going to add to the essence of our portfolio or other representation, that it absolutely will not be turned down at the table. None of us are looking to do that. However, if there are ongoing casual type functions that we're going to just for the sake of that networking, that passion of a councillor, I certainly speak for myself when I say this, is to pay for that myself if it's not going to be approved of at the table. I will continue to advocate for my community to the best of my ability and won't lean on the council funding to pay for that if the need be. So I'm happy for this. I think it's a great initiative, and I thank Councillor Wickerson for presenting it to the table, and it is really good governance. I'm in favour of this.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Kirk. Speaker against the motion?
Can I make a comment, not speaking against the...
Oh, we're in formal debate. Probably not.
Yeah, it's at the Mayor's discretion.
Yeah.
But,
look, I'm happy for it. I don't think it's a die in the ditch item. It's one we... you're right.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I actually commend Drew Councillor Wickerson for actually looking at ways that we can improve our transparency. I had a few concerns, mainly because of sort of some of the appointments that we have and the meetings that are involved in those appointments. But I think the amendment with the CEO on those urgent businesses, but how that we can just fill in those gaps. But one of the things that I take great pride in this council and the previous councils is that we have gone from being very inward-looking to where we have actually made great goals. And a lot of that has meant that we have had to actually travel, we've had to network, we've had to build relationships. And I just wanted to highlight just a couple of those really great things that we've done, and this has been sort of that we have moved out of our region. In Western Queensland, up until 4 or 5 years ago, very little purchasing policy involved supporting Rockhampton and Central Queensland. We now have, where part of their purchasing policy is if they can't buy it locally in the Central West, they stick to Central Queensland first. And we actually see now most of the vehicles that are in these regions are actually purchased within our own Central Queensland region. That's because of that friendship that we've built up and that respect and that support that is both ways. The resource industry, as I think, is one that we have really made some strides, and Councillor Smith was right. The very first mining expo we went to, the mayor of, I won't say the city, the mayor of the city said, "What the hell are you doing here? You're a beef centre, you're not a resource centre." And our comment was very, very quick. We actually started off as a walk-in, walk-out mining town. We worked very, very hard, and the comment as we developed it was, if your product is so good and you see the board of directors on the showroom floor, that is something there that we've got to take a stronger look at. And we've all, over those times, have participated in that. And then even more recently, in sort of some of the other areas, we're actually now becoming the leaders in regional Queensland in so many areas. And a lot of that is due to us putting that extra yards in. And a lot of it is we're putting a lot of our own personal time, a lot of our own personal travel time, and paying for those ourselves. But also there we are sort of using our budget, allowed budget, to actually move to those places. And I think just having that ability to be able to just have that transparency, I think that that is quite good. I always have one issue though, it's always put as conference. Very few of our travel is actually conference travel, which people sort of have that negative image. A lot of it is actually regional council on regional council interaction. It's actually sort of more working for a better good for regional Queensland. So I just wanted to make those comments that what I see is what Councillor Wickerson has done is actually there something that part of a recording method, a little bit more work for putting together the agendas, but I think it's still going to benefit us. We are doing great jobs, so
yep,
just sort of want to suggest this is not a negative, but this is something we can make into a positive.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. It's again, get those comments. I think we're in the interest of time. We'll go back to the no further speakers. I'll go back to the petition rep, Councillor Wickerson, to final speak.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to sum up, and absolutely agree with what Councillor Fisher said. We've been involved with some amazing events and networking and functions outside of this region to the benefit of the region, and this in no way is intended to stop that going forward. Again, as Councillor Rutherford said, it's about the public perception that we're being very responsible with our financial management, even though the numbers that we're talking about for this particular budget aren't huge. It's the message it sends to the public, community, and also to our staff that we are seriously scrutinising every dollar we spend, because it all adds up. But if an event or a request to go away can quite simply be justified, that there is a true value to the region, it'll come back to the table, and I have no doubt that that will pass through, and we'll attend to those events. So it's not about, again, back where we started, it's not a travel ban. It's just to put that layer of oversight or peer review or scrutiny, whatever you want to call it, over that particular decision, just to send a good signal, but also to be good governance.
Thanks, Councillor. Okay, well, I'll put the vote. Those in favour? Those opposed? Wish to record the... Thank you. The motion's carried. Thanks very much, councillors.
And just if I could, Mr Mayor, for Councillor Rutherford, the stuff in the annual report is everything that's in the expenses reimbursement policy, which includes car, training, travel, the whole lot, so it's your entire amount. Yeah, so sorry, I was a little bit off with that one, so yeah.
Yes, so it's difficult to work out to keep a track of what's going on.
Yeah, I think Linda and Damon are now sending monthly reports out to councillors on that, so yeah.
Yep. Okay, councillors.
I just ask a question. So, at the end of the day, it's all lumped together. That 5,000, our travel and our car is
Two separate matters. One is your budget at 5,000,
Yeah.
and the other one is the reporting under the annual report.
But Councillor Rutherford's got 7,000, so that's the combination of two of those.
Or three of those, or four of those, five of those things. So that'll go down to your uniforms, through to travel, it'll be all of that. So everything you're allowed under your expenses reimbursement policy goes into that annual report as a lump sum.
Councillor Wixon.
Mr Mayor, just through you to Evan, is there any way in that public report, because all the public will see is the bottom line, to break that up? I had one year which was a discrepancy, and anyone that's got an emergency trailer or skate park or something needs to be across this too. And with Damon I could work through it, but I had a spike in my expenditure one year. I wondered what this was going on, because I had the $50,000 environment trailer, and all the costs associated with that and depreciation and whatever got lumped onto my travel as well. So just to itemise, and that was resolved, but just it was hard to track down, because even I couldn't find out what it was. So for the public looking at it, they go, oh, well, you're travelling all over the world.
Okay, it's probably just the final one, Mr Mayor. Councillors, I'll print out the the expenses reimbursement policy. Just councillors, be mindful of what the definition within that policy is about council business. Okay, just be mindful of what's in there, because
there's no grey line, especially with the current climate with scrutiny. You need to be mindful of what those processes are, and not step outside. Councillors, that said, there be no further business. I'd like to thank everyone for attending this morning, and we'll close some general business. I thought we just did that. Yes, Councillor Fisher.
Got two. Firstly, with the resolution, on Thursday there is the Bowen Basin Mining Club meeting in Mackay. Do we need to apply? Yeah. So can we do that verbally at the meeting?
Yeah, it's through urgent business.
Okay. So I think this would be best as the councillors that are attending. Bowen Basin Mining Club meeting is being held in Mackay this Thursday, which would be the 27th of May. This will...
Sorry, councillors, I do have to... I've got another appointment picking the governor up from the airport, so I've got to...
sorry, councillors, I think I could deal with that one in line with that decision as an urgent one. So, yes.
Thank you for that. The last one is I'd like to actually thank the Mayor, councillors, and all of the council support staff. I've never taken a period of time like I had off for health reasons. It was something that I think was very needed, and I just actually want to thank everyone for their support because it was very much appreciated.
Okay, thanks very much. Acknowledge Councillor Fisher, and yeah, we will, and no further questions, we'll close the meeting and thank everyone for your attendance. Thank you.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join